So a couple months ago, I went to Banff with Peter and I made this kind of different sort of intro B-roll montage than I would normally do, and it was using no music. I only used sound effects to build the whole cinematic B-roll sequence. And it was actually really fun. It felt different. It was something that I wasn't quite used to, and the final product was really different from the other B-roll sequences that I normally do. So I thought it would be really interesting to show you guys what I did to create that whole sequence. So I decided to do kind of the same format montage, you guys just saw it, and I'm gonna show you guys how I did that. So just like in the intro montage of this video, it was all filmed in 120p on the 1DX2, and if you have a 1DX2, you know that there's no audio recording when you're filming in 120 frames per second. So you have to build everything from scratch. And when I think about sound design, I basically put the sounds into 3 categories. The first one would be ambience, and that's kind of the background sound that's holding everything together. And that could be anything from street sounds to ambient restaurant sound. And then number 2 is Foley, and these are kind of, in my mind, the obvious sounds. So when you look at your footage, what are the things that are happening that would make sounds? For example, a tire spinning, or a car going by, or me slurping noodles. All those things would have some sort of sound to it. And then number 3 would be my edit sounds, which aren't necessarily sounds that are coming from within the footage, but to emphasize the editing. So a bass hit somewhere, or a riser, or a swoosh sound to go from one clip to the next. They're all sound effects to kind of help your edit. Okay, so let's take a look at how I actually put together the sound design for this little intro. And all of these sounds that I used are from soundsnap.com. And to me, it's the best place for sound effects. If you want really high quality sound effects and an easy way to find them, which is probably the biggest headache when you're trying to find good sound effects. A lot of sound effects just aren't good. So SoundSnap has a ton of really high quality sound effects, and they're really easy to find. Pretty much anything you can think of, search it, and you're gonna find some sort of sound effect for that. Also, thank you SoundSnap for sponsoring this video. Appreciate it. All right, so first I'm actually gonna edit this whole montage, and I'm gonna try and get the pacing as close as I can to the final product. Yeah, you might need to tweak things a little bit after you've added the sound effects, but for the most part, you want the pacing to be about where they should be for your final product. Then we start layering on the sounds, and I always start off with the ambient sounds because they're kind of the base for your whole sound design. They are the background sounds that are gonna kind of hold together the whole edit. So I look at the footage and I think, what kind of sounds, what kind of ambient sounds would be coming from that footage? For example, with this drone shot, you could think of, for example, street sounds or some wind kind of going through, or maybe a helicopter sound. You could kind of make it a helicopter shot, or even drone sounds, because people kind of know what drones are nowadays. So maybe that sparks something. Whatever works for your footage, just look at your footage and think about what kind of ambient sounds would be coming from that. Then I go to SoundSnap, I look up wind noise, for example, find the right one, and I try that out and see if it works. Let's say we really like the wind noise, but we could also add some other ambient sounds, for example, some street sounds, and together they might make it feel a lot more organic than just one ambient sound by itself. Because when we think about the things you're hearing, for example, just stop right now and listen to the ambient sounds in your room. There's probably a whole bunch of different sounds going on, so you kind of want to layer even the ambient sounds, and you would go through your whole video and do this. You always want some sort of ambient sound in the background for the most part. That's gonna really make it feel a lot more organic and natural. If there's just dead silence, it just feels weird. You need at least room tone, which is just like what sounds are in the room. For example, I'm hearing cars going outside and my computer, and there's a little bit of fan from the light. There's a whole bunch of little ambient sounds. Next, we're gonna look at the Foley sounds, and here again, we're gonna look at each clip and look inside that footage. What are the things that would be making sounds? What are the kind of obvious sounds? So if there's a car in there, that's an obvious sound. A car would make noise. The one wheel, that would make some sort of sound. The Nerf gun would make a sound. Me slurping noodles, drinking water. All of these are sounds that you can include in your sound design. And you could try to record these sounds on location, but sometimes you can't. For example, when you're filming 120p, or you'd have to have some sort of other recorder and it just didn't make sense. There was only me and my editor Matt filming. And if you can't record the sounds, then you can try to reenact or reproduce those sounds, which takes a lot of time and it's actually a lot harder than you would think. There's actually Foley artists who are just specializing in this. I think it's just way easier to go on something like SoundSnap and look up something like car sounds or man drinking water, wheel spinning, whatever it is that you see in your footage, look that thing up. And then you can also kind of think outside the box. It doesn't always have to be the actual sound that that object or that thing would make. For example, when I picked up those little Nerf balls, there obviously wouldn't have been really any sounds to that, or it would have been really quiet. So I just made these little bubble popping type sound effects just because I thought it fit. As long as it's either believable or it fits your edit, I think that's all that matters. And again, I would go through each clip and add these Foley sounds. And then lastly, I would add on the edit sounds, and these are really just to make a little bit more impact on the edits. So for example, if you really want to emphasize an edit, you add a bass hit or maybe a riser to build up some tension to a certain point in your edit, or using a swoosh to go from one clip to the next, or in a speed ramp. There's a lot of different kind of edit sounds that you can use to enhance and to add impact to your edits. And remember, every sound can be manipulated. You can change the EQ, the pitch of it. You can even do things like slow it down, and that'll change the sound of it completely. Also, make sure that the sounds are kind of on the right level. You don't want one sound effect to be super loud and distracting. They need to blend in. Be subtle with the sound design. That's usually what works best. So if you listen to an edit like this with just the ambient sounds, for example, or just the Foley sounds by themselves, it's not that interesting and it doesn't feel natural. It feels really weird, and right away it's distracting. So you need to really layer all of these sounds to make it convincing, to make it natural, to make it organic. And when you combine all these sounds and you do it well, it can make for a really cool cinematic edit with no music. It's all about layering and just trying different sounds. I've tried all sorts of different sounds, and sometimes they don't work at all, and sometimes they just fit perfectly, and you would have had no idea that that sound would fit with this movement. There's a lot of room to just think outside the box and be creative. It's really fun just trying to come up with different sound effects for different things in your videos. Alright, so that's it. That's how I would do my sound design. The ambience, the Foley sounds, and the edit sounds. That's gonna get you really far. I hope you guys like this video. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe even do that little bell thing. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Winter is no longer coming. It's here.